There's a million different productivity hacks out there, but none of them work if you don't know what's blocking you. A lot of them use generic advice like get a planner or make sure to stay focused. But if it was that easy, wouldn't it have already happened? Or they use crazy advice like wake up extra early at 3:50 in the morning and dunk your head in ice water. And that might work for them, but does it work for you? We're going to look at different productivity profiles and what tips and strategies work for different types using the Enneagram as a framework. Hi, I'm Ayla with True You Systems, and we're going to start with type 1, the perfectionist. And their block is that things need to be perfect, and often it makes it so it's hard for them to finish things and therefore be productive. Ones are diligent and methodical, but they tend to feel like things need to be a certain way, and they hold themselves to that strict standard with not very much flexibility. Because of that, it's hard to finish things and get things done. So, they've been working on something for 3 hours, and it's just the intro to a project that needs to happen, but it's still not really getting done. For example, they've been working on this documentary film, and they're still editing it, but it's been 14 years. So ones are hard workers and they stay focused. So the tip for them isn't about that. It's about how to get away from things needing to be perfect. So the productivity tip for ones is to give yourself a good enough deadline, meaning that you know that it's not going to be perfect, but this is when it needs to get done. Because what we're shifting the focus on is that done is better than perfect. You're basically giving yourself permission to move on and to proceed with the project that needs to happen. Next, we have type 2, the helper, and their block to productivity is prioritizing other people's needs first. So for twos, it's hard to make sure to put what you need to get done ahead of everyone else's things that need to happen. So, you really need to work on that resume, but then your friend calls and they've been having a really hard time. And so it makes sense to just go over there for like a quick minute just to check in on them. And on the way, they also need groceries. And, could you also pick up their pet snake from the vet? That would be so helpful. They didn't finish any of the things that they needed to finish, what were their priorities, because they overcommitted to helping someone else. Nothing got done that needed to happen, but Sarah is feeling way better now. Twos are kind and caring people, and they have a lot of energy and tend to be very active. So twos can get a lot done. It's just that they often prioritize other people's things before their own. And so the tip for twos is to reverse that and make sure that to be productive, to schedule time for the things that you need first, and then to allocate time to other people. So a way to do this, because it can be really hard for twos, is to practice saying no for small things and experiencing that everything actually ends up okay. Having priorities of your own isn't selfish. It's making sure that you're able to be fully present for the people in your life when you really need to be. It's like the oxygen mask on the plane. You have to put yours on first before you can help someone else. Otherwise, you're going to pass out. Next, we have type 3, the achiever, and it's important to note that a lot of productivity advice out there is from threes for threes. And so you'd think it should work for threes, and in a lot of ways it does. The issue for threes is that their to-do list is so long. They want to optimize for efficiency all the time and tend to be really good at that. But their block is that they over-fixate on doing that for everything and experience burnout. They're motivated to succeed and to succeed with what people expect of them, really to exceed expectations and do things the best. And that means doing a lot. They're concerned with external validation, and a lot of times this can get in the way of being productive for the things that matter to them. So for example, they've been studying for the bar and so busy doing that they haven't even had a chance to realize that they actually hate law and really just want to become a pastry chef. Sometimes threes know that the main goal that they have is what they want, but that there's all these other little goals and expectations that they need to keep up with that add on to that and become a burden. Needing to keep up on your social media posts and looking good a certain way that you think people expect. So you end up with 25 things on a to-do list, and some of it includes mindfulness because that that's important these days, and it also includes the thing that you're working on and excited about, but it all has to get done before your facial at noon. Threes love to check things off a list. In fact, often they'll add things to a list that they've already done just so that they can check it off because it's so satisfying. But a lot of times this need to have more gets in the way of prioritizing what's meaningful and often lose track of what's the main thing that they really care about. So it may look productive because a lot of things are happening, but it may not be productive to what they really want to get done. So the productivity tip for threes is not how to optimize more. It's asking yourself, what does success look like for me? And defining that. So prioritizing meaningful goals over just more. So you don't have to be and do everything to be valuable. It's important to keep that in mind as a three. You will still be successful. Okay, now we have type 4, the individualist. These are creative, empathetic people, but their block for productivity has to do with having things needing to be mood-driven. They often feel they need that inspiration in order to have the energy to get something done, but don't always have inspiration when it's needed. So you felt that overwhelming desire to paint your kitchen turquoise, and you start that, and then you kind of stop feeling like into it, and then it's hard to get started again and finish the task. And instead you end up chasing that feeling or trying to reproduce it again in order to get things done. You spend a bunch of time working on the playlist that's going to make it so that you can do the painting. Basically, if the vibes are off, it's not going to happen. And in the meantime, you have a kitchen that's half turquoise. So losing momentum can be really an issue for fours and for productivity because they use that energy to kind of blast into something, but it's hard to have it be consistent. This is because it's really important for fours to be authentic in what they're doing. So if something doesn't feel right, it's a really big deal for them. Fours also may worry that if they do finish the project, it won't end up as special as they had envisioned it in their mind, and that can also be a block for productivity. And again, this has to do with authenticity. They feel like what they're producing is an extension of themselves, and so it matters a lot. So the productivity tip for fours is to create unique rituals that help you stay productive and start projects without it being dependent on a mood or a feeling in that time. Because your mood in the moment is not who you are. You're not being inauthentic. You're making sure that you're sticking to your real self, the self that made that commitment to make that beautiful turquoise vision that you had for your kitchen. That mood is just that moment. Now we have 5, the observer. Their block to productivity is over-researching and underdoing. These people are logical and rational, and when they want to know more about something, they're really, really good about learning about it. But sometimes that want to know more can lead to never-ending research. Like you're 43 articles into your research on being more productive, and now you've become an expert on Japanese methodologies of self-improvement. But you've never done any of it. If this is the 7th video you've watched on productivity today, it might be time to turn off the screen. But before you do, the productivity tip for 5s is to have strict cutoffs times for research. Essentially, you're going to be doing time boxing because the issue with 5s is not knowing enough. 5s know a lot. They know more than most people about any given thing. It's getting into action and doing it. So with this tip, you're going to change the threshold of when you feel ready. You're probably going to be starting to do things and take action at around 80 or 90% readiness. And this is a logical way to go about things because you want to pull the trigger and get into action before you have diminishing returns on what you're even learning. Even though it was very cool to learn about Kaizen. So while you guys are Googling about that in another tab, let's talk about 6s. 6s are the loyalists. They are excellent troubleshooters and highly reliable, but their block for productivity has to do with overthinking things and wanting to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So they tend to overplan in order to not make the wrong move. 6s are practical and also cautious. They want to find certainty in things, and so they often look to a trusted authority or trusted friends in order to move forward. This might look like something like writing an email that needs to happen, and they get it written, but then spend time with 3 separate friends going over whether or not it was written right, and then by the time it's being sent, it's not really relevant anymore. They're worried about making a decision and having it be the wrong one, but it's because they're worried that the outcome might be disastrous. A 6 could probably run a government level risk assessment on which vacuum cleaner to get. The task is just vacuuming the house and that needs to get done, but like, what's the air quality going to be? These are things you need to think about. So they may put off making a decision on something for months, and this may look like procrastination, but really it's being in a spiral of caution and doubt. So they're very aware of what needs to get done, and also the fear that not doing it will cause something else bad down the line. So how do you get out of that cycle? So the productivity tip for 6s is to commit to small, low-risk steps, and then finding one trusted accountability partner to check in with about those steps that you set up for yourself. Because the stakes of each step are not high, doing it this way, you're able to make sure that you can build confidence in the decisions that you make going forward. Because none of these steps individually will result in disaster, even if something goes wrong along the way. By the way, if you've been liking this video so far, press the like button. And if you've been really liking it and you want to know more about being more productive, I do one-on-one coaching and we can go into strategies that work specifically for you to get to the goals that you want to achieve. And speaking of being productive, I've been productive myself working on this new Enneagram self-discovery kit. I hope you can check it out at the website, which is also new, and I'm excited to hear what you think about it, and I hope it's helpful. Next, we have 7s, the Enthusiasts. They are spontaneous and optimistic, but their block for productivity is shiny object syndrome. They get distracted easily. They also have a million different ideas, and so they often will jump from project to project to project and not finish them. These people are the definition of having a side quest. They're like side quests within side quests. You start a task, you're going to clean out the closet once and for all. And so you start cleaning it out and then you see that there's these Halloween costumes and you're like, oh, I didn't remember that I was that. And then you dress up in it. And of course you have to try all of them on to see. And now you have this new idea about another Halloween costume, even though it's July. And then you're going to go to the fabric store. And now you're at the fabric store and you're picking out the fabric. And now you're back home and you've decided it's actually going to be for reupholstering your couch. You don't know how to sew. That's a minor detail. So while having a lot of energy and getting started on things is easy for 7s, staying on task and finishing is hard. So the productivity tip for 7s is to try to limit what you're working on, to really dive deep into one thing or 2 things at a time, and then also to reward yourself when that happens. The reward can make it fun. It's less of like that boring task thing that can happen that really is to 7s. So if having something that you can look forward to and that you know is going to happen, that can really help with finishing a task. Yeah, they hate that grind, but they also really hate missing out. But the thing is when you don't get to complete something and have the satisfaction with that, you're missing out on that feeling as well. And those other ideas that are probably pretty awesome don't have to go away. You can start on those after completing the other task. Next, we have 8, the Protector. They're assertive and decisive, and their block to productivity has to do with not wanting to go slowly and having trouble with authority. They tend to want to bulldoze forward in order to get things done, and planning just gets in the way. They like big, bold moves, going all in. It's hard for them to pace themselves. So they might take on a huge project and want to be productive in it and want results immediately. Something like deciding that night that they're going to redesign their whole website and get it done that night, and then working partway through, realizing they missed crucial steps and then rage quitting. Like they might decide to rebuild their back porch, but they're not going to follow any tutorial or ask for any advice. But this brash move, though sometimes can end in good results, can often cause burnout and not finishing. So they can have burnout from overdoing it and going too hard and having unrealistic goals, but they can also have that they made a goal for themselves, but then they don't want to have to follow it. Like no one can tell me what to do, even me. So, buying a planner because you're going to get organized and then being like, I'm not going to put things in a planner, that's for the weak. So the productivity tip for 8s is to break down big goals into smaller steps. That might not sound appealing for an 8 because you want to do those big, bold moves. But the thing is, it's time to think like a general, less like a foot soldier. You're thinking of the big picture and all of the different pieces that need to go into it methodically. So you can still have those big goals and those big wins, but doing it strategically will mean that there's less burnout and less rage quitting. Next, we have 9, the Peacemaker. They're calm and easygoing, and their block for productivity has to do with merging with the agenda of others and losing track of their own priorities. They tend to go with the flow, especially to avoid conflict. But a lot of times the flow can be never getting to anything that needs to get done. So you've been needing to finish that paper for school, but somehow you ended up playing in a friend's soccer game all day. Nines want to feel peaceful. They want to stay at peace. And sometimes that might mean that the task that didn't happen, that paper that didn't get written, is now causing stress. And so they try to avoid feeling that stress by doing anything else to distract themselves from it. So that might look like, deciding to rearrange the bookshelf, maybe reorganize the spice rack, water every plant in the house, check on your sourdough, basically anything besides doing the exact task you need to do. All of those other tasks feel more comfortable, and nines lean towards feeling more comfortable, either with tasks, menial tasks like that, or with actual distractions that are calming, like TV and food and other comforts. And it can be really easy for nines because of this to lose track of what they really want to prioritize. Because if you prioritize it and don't do it, then it's stressful. So maybe it's better not to have to prioritize it and to just go along with whatever happens to be going on and not have goals of your own. So the tip for productivity for nines is to clarify your own goals, preferably at the beginning of the day, taking some time on your own to think about what really matters to you. Creating a small checklist can be helpful, not with everything that needs to get done because that's overwhelming, but with small tasks that are doable and that you can celebrate those small wins when they happen. You don't have to do everything that's backlogged that you haven't gotten done. You can just start now with one small thing that you can finish. It also can be helpful for nines to avoid those comfort traps. Things like you're needing to do something, you're needing to write that report, maybe not doing it in your comfiest chair might be helpful. Next thing you know, you're having that cozy tea and you might as well have a snack with it too, and you're watching the 4th episode of Strange New Worlds. So those are the 9 types and some strategies that can be helpful for productivity. I'd love to hear from you about what you found helpful for yourself and for your type and what you relate to and why. I have been learning so much in the comments, and it's just so exciting to see what people have to say and their own experiences. So please leave a message. I love talking with you and can't wait to talk to you again soon. Thanks again. Bye.